target and to attack because they're non-Chinese. So for the outrage was, I guess, on a bigger scale because critics said that these were Western brands perpetuating stereotypes about Chinese faces.
And we know that, beauty standards are changing all the time, but have big round eyes always been so popular in Chinese culture?
No, actually. So experts actually say that a lot of the ancient Chinese dynasties tended to feature and prize smaller and narrower eyes. So for example, in the Tang Dynasty, which is China's golden age for art and culture, and it was also known for a lot of famous beauties in the court, more narrow eyes were the prize. And a lot of the paintings that came out of that era actually featured women with very long, narrow eyes. And that was considered the ultimately most beautiful look. So very different from today.
It's crazy. We have it in Iranian culture. Facial hair right now is so taboo for women. But around 150 years ago, 200 years ago, it was considered the sexiest, most attractive thing in Iranian culture for a woman to have a bit of a mustache, So beauty standards completely. Yeah, I know. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
So do you hope that this debate regarding Chai Nangyang will actually bring about some change in how beauty is considered and looked at right now in China?
That's certainly something that I hope will happen. I don't think it will happen so quickly, only because it's so easy for critics and for nationalists to attack someone like her and edge out all the other voices of support. She did actually get a lot of support online, but when nationalists are upset, they will just try to quieten those voices. And at the same time, some of these brands that got in trouble for having narrow eye models actually had to come out and apologize. So if brands are doing that and apologizing, it means that they are sort of agreeing to this ideal that you should only have big round eyes. So I feel like it won't change anytime soon, which is a little sad. We want to push for wider representation of Asian faces in the media, and for China right now to focus on maybe just one particular beauty ideal is a little bit difficult for models like Tsai Ming-na. I'm worried that what if she can't get jobs after this, if she's just going to get attacked every single time? But, I certainly hope that this will change in time and that we can, celebrate all faces as beautiful.
The debate about Chinese beauty standards and racist stereotypes with Wai Yip of World Online speaking to me all the way from Singapore. It's now time for a short break. Don't go away. We'll be back with plenty more stories here on the fifth floor after the latest BBC News.
You're listening to the BBC World Service. Join us for the tale of a tiny fish.
Imagine you live, work and go to school on the Atlantic coast in Senegal. Yaboy, also known as the people's fish, swims in these waters and is rich in nutrients that your body needs to thrive and be healthy.
It's this really cheap form of food that's easily dried and transported, and everyone can access it.
But recently, the yaboy has been disappearing.
As fish sellers, if we don't have fish, how can we support our families?
Join me, Hazel Healy, to find out why they are disappearing and what impact that's having on people living there.
Tale of a Tiny Fish at bbcworldservice.com/documentaries.
And still to come on the fifth floor, in praise of Aleppo pistachios.
I'm talking about the fresh pistachios, which I'm not sure many people have seen. And they're covered with a bright red, velvety, leathery exterior. You keep on peeling and eating, and it's this amazing thing.
We'll hear more about Aleppo's famous pistachios and the Syrian farmers trying to revive their land after the news.
BBC News. The office of the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has apologised to Queen Elizabeth for two parties held at Downing Street in breach of COVID rules the night before her husband's funeral. A spokesman for Mr Johnson described the parties as deeply regrettable at a time of national mourning. At the funeral of Prince Philip, the Queen had to sit alone before the nation to comply with coronavirus restrictions. The United Nations says at least 108 civilians have been killed by airstrikes in northern Ethiopia in the past 2 weeks. The UN Human Rights Office said 75 others had been injured in strikes allegedly carried out by the Ethiopian Air Force. Lawyers for Novak Djokovic are attempting to stop him being deported after the government cancelled his visa in a row over COVID rules. The world's top men's tennis player, who hasn't been vaccinated, faces a series of official hearings as his legal team challenges the decision. Ukrainian government experts are blaming Russia for a cyber attack that's targeted a number of government organisations. A message on some of the websites said the data of Ukrainians had been made public, but the government said no data had been leaked. The Pentagon says the US takes all threats by Iran seriously after an animated video depicting a drone attack on former President Trump was posted on the website of Iran's Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. The video has been posted on the second anniversary of the assassination of the top Iranian military commander Qasem Soleimani, which was ordered by Mr. Trump. The business magazine Forbes has released its latest list of the highest paid YouTube stars, which is this year topped by 23-year-old Jimmy Donaldson, also known as Mr. Beast. He's estimated to have earned $54 million in 2021. BBC News.
మీరిప్పుడు ఫరానాక్ అమీదీతో కలిసి ది 5th ఫ్లోర్ వింటున్నారు. మాతో పాటు ఉండండి.
Thank you, Padma Meenakshi of BBC Telugu, for that lovely welcome back to the second half of the 5th floor. And if you were wondering, Telugu is the predominant language spoken in southern India. I'm your host, Farnak Amidi, and still to come on the program, delicious pistachios of Aleppo and the farmers trying to revive their land. Stay with us for that one. But we are heading to Georgia first, where the government has been criticized by many Western countries for what they have called democratic backsliding and failing to protect minorities. It was last summer when the far-right protesters attacked the offices of the LGBT group Tbilisi Pride. Many of those who carried out the attack were supporters of the far-right broadcasting group Alt-Info, who have recently also registered as a political party. No one has been prosecuted yet for the attack. Reyhan Dimitri recently went to speak to both members of Tbilisi Pride and Alt-Info, and she joins us now to share her insights. Thanks, Reyhan, for joining us. But let's start with the events of the 5th of July last year in Tbilisi. Why did that violence spark on that particular day?
Thanks, Feranak. Right, let's take the listeners back to 5th of July. It was a hot July day, and that was the day when Georgia's LGBTQ organization called Tbilisi Pride wanted to hold a march of dignity. Basically, they just wanted to walk in central Tbilisi and to show to their countrymen that they do exist. However, the date was known to the far-right groups and to other conservative traditionalist groups, and they gathered in central Tbilisi. There is this avenue called Rustaveli Avenue, named after a famous Georgian medieval poet. And it has been the focal point for most of the protests in this country for the past 3 decades. So Rustaveli Avenue gets filled with these conservative groups, the far-right supporters, from early morning. And they gathered outside Georgia's parliament. That morning, the country's prime minister, he held a cabinet meeting, which was broadcast live. And at this meeting, he said that holding the parade, the gay parade, would be totally unacceptable for the absolute majority of Georgians, and therefore it shouldn't be held. that was interpreted by far-right groups as kind of the green light for them to go and do what they came to do. And what did they come to do? They wanted to attack these LGBT activists. Also, right in front of the parliament, in this Rustaveli Avenue, there's an ancient church, and the ground of that church was full of people that were listening to their priests, and the priests held their microphones and they openly called for violence. They said that no such parade should be allowed and that it was okay to go and attack gay people. The same was said by the far-right groups. So what did the crowd do? They walked a short distance and they went and they ransacked the offices of Tbilisi Pride. There were these absolutely unforgettable, terrible images of this mob climbing to the third floor of this old building where the offices of Tbilisi Pride is located, and they tore down the rainbow flag. And then they continued basically chasing LGBT activists across the town.
In your video, you went to actually meet a member of this group, Alt Info. Can you tell us who they are and what was their connection to the violence on that day?
So Alt Info, they started as a group of like-minded friends, 5 or 6 guys, and they were broadcasting on YouTube. They had a YouTube channel and also on Facebook. The content of their broadcast has been very kind of anti-Western, anti-liberal, and full of the hate speech. So the person that I met, he's one of the leaders of Alt Info, 33-year-old Zurab Maharadze. He actually kind of really dressed up for the interview. He was wearing white shirt and black suit. He wanted to look presentable, and he looked quite presentable and cultured and came across as quite a moderate person in the interview. But we got hold of the tapes in which he was openly calling for violence. It was the same guy who was screaming on the 5th of July in central Tbilisi, calling on his supporters to go and attack gay people. So it was quite an interesting experience to meet him face to face and to also get access to their TV channel, because that's one of the things that outraged a lot of Georgians, that this group, which has been spreading hate speech, now holds a license and they broadcast to the entire country.
And now they are also registering as a political party. How did that happen?
Well, they were allowed to register their political party. It was registered in December.